So, welcome everybody to our Friday workshop. On this week, we'll be talking about subtitles and closed captions and how we can utilize them, how we can weave them into listening comprehension activities to the benefit of our students. Before I jump into the subject, I wanted to really quickly make a distinction here between subtitles and closed captions. Subtitles are, let me maybe start with closed captions. So closed captions depict all the audio that is unfolding in the clip, in the language that the clip is in. So if the clip is in English, the closed captions will be in English, and oftentimes it will also include things like the description of like background sounds, let's say, or music and things of that nature. Subtitles could be in the same language. They can also be in other languages. So this would be the distinction I wanted to make here. I will be using those two terms interchangeably to refer to just the text at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so with that out of the way, I wanted to ask you guys, I wanted to open up with a question. So do you use subtitles or closed captions in your practice, in your classroom? If so, how do you use them? And if you don't use them, that's fine too. I think we would all be interested in hearing why not. And there are perfectly valid reasons for using them, also for not using them. So why don't we begin with that?
Is that a question for all of us?
Yeah, it's a question for everyone. I mean, I think there's only a few of us here, so we don't really need to break down into bigger rooms.
Well, I just wanted to say that often I don't really have a choice whether there are subtitles or not. So there are a number of things that I really like using, and they come with subtitles. And sometimes they come with subtitles that are also translations.
Okay.
So often it's not by choice.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the one thing I wanted to say. Is it possible to get rid of those subtitles sometimes? But I think some of them are really part of the video. And I don't know what to do. You can't mask them, can you? I mean, that would be my main question. Otherwise, I mean, it depends if the text if it's really difficult. I mean, I'm teaching mostly elementary. Ideally, it would be nice to show it first without subtitles, try to get what the students have understood, and then just tell them, okay, well, you're going to listen a second time, this time with subtitles in the language. And then maybe if it's really hard, they can listen with subtitles and also look at the subtitles, and they can also be translations.
So what I'm hearing is sort of two different things here. They're related, of course. So oftentimes there's just material that we're using, and it sort of comes with subtitles baked in, and it's there. We don't really know what to do with it. On the other hand, what I'm also hearing is basically a setup for like pre-listening activity.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens in the listening activities that we get through the textbook. The students can watch them without the subtitles or with the subtitles, and they're supposed to watch mostly, at home. And they have the script if they want to have the,
Okay, Chris, I just opened up the chat here. Would you're saying that you would like to reframe the questions that's still valid here? Put it from.
Yes, I did want to because you asked that question, and I wanted to I had sort of a preceding question, which is
sure,
when I'm teaching, I always kind of wonder why would I use them, or why would I not use them?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like what can you accomplish with them, but what can they prevent?
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, what are the disadvantages of using them? So that was kind of my that's what I wanted to kind of reframe, just because I wasn't sure about the original question.
Okay, yeah, we can stick to this rendering. Thank you, Chris. So, and we already started talking about that, right? What would be sort of the appropriate context for subtitles? As Pascal mentioned, anything that, you know, we can use them after sort of pre-listening activity. Peter, you, I think, had your hand up briefly there for a second. I don't know if I may have maybe.
I just want to follow up to what Pascal was saying. If the video is from YouTube, you can easily download the video and then import it to iMovie. Then you can block the subtitles. It's a two-step approach, but it's rather feasible. And in Dutch, in the class of Leuven, we use subtitles because there's a website called Netbox, developed by the University of Leuven, and they have videos, authentic material, but students can opt in or out to use subtitles. And we encourage them to use them because basically it helps, of course, with listening understanding, but I do get the idea that with the subtitles, they're reading it and they're practicing two skills, but in real life, integrative language skill use is what we do all the time. So basically, if it helps them, my advice would be, why not use it?
Peter, thank you for this. And I'm happy that you've mentioned the sort of technicalities of putting subtitles into videos and hard coding them. We will talk about that at a later time. But I seem to remember from last week, you brought up an interesting point about segmentation, which is, as you rightfully point out, one of the more difficult things that students have to do. I was wondering if you could maybe contextualize it using subtitles, if this is something that, you know, do you think that subtitles could help facilitate?
On the contrary, I think specifically for the segmentation activity where students have to define what are the boundaries of the words and of clauses, if you see what's being said, there's not much processing of segmentation going on. So I would say if your focus is indeed, are they hearing word chunks, are they hearing articles, then I wouldn't use any subtitles at all, because I'm basically just reading and then saying. So that's my opinion. I would only use it to help them as a scaffolding technique for just general listening comprehension. Do you get the main idea and do you get any specific details?
That's very interesting. Okay. Hello, Jose Antonio.
Hello.
I know that you work with music, with songs a lot in your classrooms, in your classes. How, if you use subtitles at all, how do you use them? What are your pedagogical objectives here?
I actually don't use subtitles. Those music exercises are for the Portuguese or Spanish speakers. So in general, they understand most of the words, and I just give a small vocabulary on the words that I think they cannot understand, and it's translated to Spanish, but I don't give subtitles.
Simon, if I can jump in a little bit, I would love to hear from Alessandra or Chung about where they stand on whether they are using subtitling in their class or not when they do listening comprehension. Yeah. Just to follow up the initial question you asked.
Yeah, I think that I also use music for my class, and I also use a subtitle for the elementary level, because for the elementary level, Vietnamese focus more on tones and the spelling. So the subtitle is helpful for the student when they listen, and then they can see how the words spell and with the tones, and then the student will learn the how to pronounce and how to write. So I think the subtitle I use a lot for the elementary levels. For the intermediate level, second year, first of all, I use the I don't use a video. I just use the audio for the listening comprehension, and then I will use the subtitle for like homework assignments for the student to check the sentence structures or the vocabularies, the new vocabularies, and then we can discuss for the next class. So that is the way that I use subtitles in my classes.
I have a follow-up question. That's okay before Alessandra jumps in. Chung, why do you why do you not use the video input? Why do you resort to audio only here?
I think for the first thing, I don't use the video input because I want students to focus on the comprehension. Because if you, before we do the listening comprehension, I have the pre-activities. Those students, they have the pictures and they know the topic of the listening exercise. So that's why the first time I don't use the video, I just use the audio input. And then for the second time, I will go together to combine between the video and the audio. So that is the way I want students focus more on the comprehension.
Okay, thank you. Alessandra, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I usually don't use subtitles or closed caption. I use closed caption only when we watch a movie. And when we watch a movie with the, usually we watch the movie in a short segments, 10, 12 minutes. So, but it's long enough to need the subtitles. So they can understand the plot, they can understand what's going on. And so usually the subtitles are well done. And so there is a strict, close correspondence with what the actors say, because sometimes are a little bit more confusing. And so they can understand what's going on. But most of the times, especially if there is an important dialogue, an important scene, I don't use the subtitles, and we watch again the scene, the sequence, a short dialogue, maybe 45 seconds, 1 minute, and we try to build the puzzle together with the 2-3 different listening. In some cases, not always. But usually I don't use the subtitles because we do listening. We listen to a video or to watch a video many times, and we do collaborative work together. And there is a scaffolding of the activities before, so they know the vocabulary, they know the topic. We talk about the subject of the video, and so they are more facilitated in this. But usually I don't use them.
Mm-hmm.
Simon, if you don't mind, I can ask a couple of follow-up questions. I'm interested in knowing if some of you, use multiple pass-through a listening comprehension exercise. So you have different tasks assigned to one listening text. And do you find that for some you need subtitles and some you don't? So as you progress through the task, do you see subtitles coming in? That's my first question. And the second one, and you can take them in any order you want. We talked last time about top down and bottom up. Does it make more sense to use subtitles for one type or the other of these kind of framing activities? Just Peter, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I know that Rani and I, we both use the approach of if you have a listening activity, then in the first listening activity, just get the main idea, the main gist, and then the second and third round, you listen for details and then some revision. But it's an interesting point because I think the moment you start using subtitles, I think there's a point of no return. So it's not if you can show the subtitles and then the second round, now we do without them. It doesn't make any sense. So, but it's interesting to find out what's the right spot to be using them. I wouldn't be using them in the first round, to be sure. To me, it makes more sense to use them for listening for details, but that's just my opinion.
Right. Pascal, please.
Yes, actually, when you are introducing subtitles, I mean, the activity becomes hybrid in a way. I mean, you rely a little bit on what you hear and a lot on what you're reading. So basically, it's no longer a pure listening activity. And also, actually, if you, there are studies that show that if you present to a learner, I mean, both, audio input and visual input, I mean, you can maybe overload the brain, at some point. And so that they're not going to be able to concentrate on everything equally. And I think, the pull of having the words, written on the screen is too strong. I mean, for people to actually concentrate what they hear. So if you're really trying to build an audio activity, you have to start without the subtitles. And then, maybe at some point when you want to have maybe a more nuanced discussion about the content and the precise words that, the precise idea that were expressed, then, you can have the last pass through with the subtitles so that you're sure that everybody has understood more.
I was wondering if anyone would like to respond to what Peter and Pascal were. Yes, Jose Antonio, please.
Yeah, of course, I'm very sorry that I haven't been to the previous workshops on these exercises, but I truly, the subtitles, the only time I use subtitles is for my second composition on in the Spanish and the Portuguese for Spanish speakers, where I want them to redo or recount the story in the past tense, and so I need them to understand the story, and so that's the only time when I use the subtitles, the English subtitles. So this is something that they're going to watch on their own at home, and then they're going to write a composition about that story, and I want them to recount that story in the past tense, and so that's the only time when I use the subtitles. But I'm more interested in see how other people use them.
It's actually it's a very interesting conversation, because it looks like the majority of you are actually not using subtitles all that frequently for reasons that are pedagogical in nature as opposed to technical. For those of us who are using subtitles, they seem to be straddling this, top down, bottom up continuum pretty evenly, right, Chung? The activity that you mentioned is, focuses on form recognition and affixes and tonality and things like that. So definitely bottom up. And then many of the activities that the rest of you mentioned are certainly, top down. I wanted to go back to what Pascal was saying in conjunction with the issue of cognitive overload, where sometimes maybe just too much. My question to all of you would be, how do we then calibrate it so that it is not too much, it's not too little, it's just the right amount? And we can do it using Captions N+1, input +1, so just a little bit more than our students are comfortable with. How would we do that? What do you think?
I think that I totally agree with Pascal. Pascal talk about the activities, the different activities for the listening skill. That if for me, when I want students don't feel too overload for the listening, because the listening skill as students have to concentration is very high, and we cannot work for a long time. Maybe maximum is, I think, 5 minutes or 10 minutes. For the concentration. So often before we do the listening exercise, I will have the pre-task for the listening. We can do with the speaking, we can do with the reading or something, other thing that to brainstorm something, the ideas for the listening exercise first. Then we go through the main activities of listening. And then I often too have a limitation for each level. For example, like for elementary level, I just put the listening text or input, maximum is 1 minute. For the second years, I put like 3 minutes is maximum for the listening input. So that is a thing that makes students don't feel overloaded when they do the listening exercise. And then after that, we can do the post activities for the listening. So that is the way that we do for the process of the listening. I often do that makes students don't feel overloaded. Yes.
So in other words, sticking to subtitles and visuals and audio, but just keeping it really short and digestible. Carol, if you don't mind, I was curious to see if you use subtitles in Hungarian, and so, you know, to what extent, when does it make sense to use them, and if you don't, why not?
Hi, I like John was just saying, I actually have some excellent materials that provide a lot of vocab input before we do a listening exercise. So it's so well scaffolded. I wish I had done it myself, but it's just some excellent materials I found. And so we practice the vocabulary, using it in construction and sentences. And then only after we are sure that everybody knows the vocabulary that will appear in the listening exercise, then they listen to a full conversation. And it's not subtitled.
Oh, and it's not subtitles. Okay, I see. So it seems to me, and feel free to chime in, that as long as an activity, a listening comprehension activity we're working with is carefully and cleverly scaffolded, it almost seems as though subtitles are just not necessary. Peter, what do you think?
I think I disagree. There's no such thing as too much scaffolding that can happen. I think the more scaffolding that you can give to a student, the better. Of course, there's a point of authenticity that's also important. But yeah, to me, it's not a question of one either or the other. It's an and question. We can do the pre-listening activities and prep them and for the vocab, and at the same time, while listening, using the subtitles. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. If they help the student to comprehend, and there are tons of studies who stress that there's not only a matter of comprehension, but also of retention of students because of using subtitles. If it's beneficial, I don't see any point why not using them.
Peter, before you mute your microphone, you raised really important point that I don't think was raised before, and I think it would be good to pause there a little bit. The matter of retention. I was wondering if you could, speak a little bit more to that. How do subtitles, or how may subtitles help with it?
Well, I'm no expert in cognitive theory, but just basically when you see whatever is being said, something's happening in your brain, you take a snapshot of it, and so it's easier to remember. So I think the main gist of the article I read a few years ago is that students remember more of what they heard because they saw what was being said, which makes, in a way, just complete sense,
Right. I was going to respond to this. Yeah, this brings to mind the dual coding theory, and especially in the context of some of the incidental vocabulary acquisition studies that I'm sure you're familiar with. I was wondering if any one of you has had experiences with that, using subtitles, or just noticing that, okay, if we use subtitles and students seem to be doing better on just remembering vocabulary items. It's just my personal curiosity here. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Before I move to the next sort of section of this discussion, I wanted to open up the floor to see if there are any more comments, any more questions here. Okay, it doesn't seem so. So yes, Pascal, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe respond to what Stefan was asking. I mean, he was asking whether subtitles could help more for the top down or the bottom up. And my sense is that, if you show subtitles in English, then it's it's definitely top down, because you're giving the meaning to the students, but they do not necessarily connect this meaning with the individual sounds that they heard.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that in a way, if you want, you can say, okay, this is what this conversation is about. Okay, you see, I mean, you listen to it first. And then now, you know, without the subtitles, can you match the utterances, you know, and the meaning? I don't know. I mean, that could be also something you want to do.
It's an interesting point you bring, because I hadn't thought about it. You know, when I was thinking of subtitles, I was thinking of subtitles in the language.
Yeah, this is why I just thought, yeah, but I'm
but,
actually,
you know,
in English, it's different.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, today with digital technology, one can switch fairly easily between subtitle tracks from English to the target language and back again. And I was wondering, you know, can we perhaps creatively think of ways that we can use this to help our students? And perhaps you're right, you know, when we're working top down, it makes very little sense to put subtitles that are also a translation, even though I have an idea, you know, about something we could do. And perhaps, you know, when you're working bottom up, it does make sense to have subtitles that are in the target language, you know, as opposed to, or not. I don't know how the rest of you feel about this.
I think Peter had his hand up for a second there.
Yeah, just want to clarify that when I was talking about subtitles, it was subtitles in the target language, not in English. Yeah, just to be sure.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Jose Antonio, go ahead. No, please.
No, I wasn't going to say anything.
You were going to say something. Say it now.
Okay, so along the lines with what Stefan was saying, and also Pascal was saying, yeah, we, you know, can really get creative with it, and I think we don't need to necessarily resort to you know, subtitles as a direct translation of what is, you know, what is happening on the screen, right? They could be conceivably expanded to make it, you know, more abstract or sort of more general as a supplement for the visual input, for the audiovisual input. It's just an idea that I had right now. I was wondering what you guys think about it. Would that work in your context, or I don't know, maybe you've tried something similar already?
Let me perhaps ask something to follow up on what you're asking, Simon. I don't know how many of you have had experience working with someone who does subtitle. I had a friend that's her job. Do you think that everything that is said on screen is actually translated in the subtitles?
Mhm.
It isn't.
No, it's not. And actually they go super fast because they are paid, you know, better if they can do more. And so they usually, it's just one run through and they type as they hear.
Actually,
I mean, I've known someone who did that. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, you can maybe, you know, but it's done super fast, and
it depends. It's also an art form. You know, you sometimes have to summarize, you know, what's happening.
Yeah, but it's not literal. I mean, it's not literal.
So there are things you can do with your students there between, you know, well, did this capture the meaning of what was said or not, and so forth and so on. Some subtitling is better than other.
Yeah, some have mistakes. Yeah, absolutely. But I was thinking of the translations.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I met a translator, I mean, who wrote subtitles for films, and he just said, no, I mean, I just listen and I type.
Sure. You know, because
we're doing simultaneous translation super fast, and that was it.
All movies in Greece are subtitled. And, you know, one of my biggest amusement when I was growing up was listening to the track and laughing at what was being translated in the subtitle because it was off. So, you know, you can do things like that with your students, I believe. And I don't know, maybe some of you have already.
We will look into some of it as well. But before we do, I wanted to hear from Yolanda, who is with us and has been attentively listening. Yolanda, are you there? No. And we lost Alessandra now too. Okay, this isn't good. Okay. So, you know, with that being said, and hopefully this doesn't come as a abrupt turn in the conversation. I wanted to move over to a bit of a summary of some of the things that we've discussed, which I took the liberty to prepare ahead of time and anticipate based on some of the things that we discussed in the weeks prior. So hope everyone can see this slide. So maybe let's start with, if we all can see this slide, let's start with some of the benefits. Okay, so there are some benefits, you know, to subtitles, no questions about that. Some of the things that we actually did mention here was word recognition. And, you know, that could be done in the context of segmenting, although as Peter pointed out, that is not necessarily advisable. With Chung, we have, you know, focus on spelling, also on tones, which is very important. I don't think we talked about form recognition, and what I mean by that is, you know, certain affixes, prefixes, you know, infixes, if we're working in languages like Arabic or Hebrew. I was wondering if this has maybe been a focus for any one of you, and do you think that subtitles would be useful in that regard? So form recognition.
I mean, for French, if you're talking about verb endings, practically everything ends in A in French.
Right, exactly. I was hoping you would bring it up, yes.
So even if you hear, I mean, if you listen very carefully, and you're not going to hear the difference between a number of verb forms. So it really helps to see them written.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so subtitles would be useful here in these phonetically deep languages like French. I think English to an extent too, right? Certainly Vietnamese. And then pronunciation, which is something we also touched on. And then there are certain challenges that are tangible that come with subtitles. Some of them we've already mentioned. It can be difficult to find the right materials. Sometimes we're forced to use subtitles, even though we may not want to. It can be time consuming to create subtitles or to, you know, download them to work with them. You know, there are matters of copyright, which I just wanted to sort of, you know, put a pin into. I'm not going to discuss. Following up on that, have you had, you know, those of you who work with subtitles, have you had any experience? Well, maybe let me take a step back. How do you procure subtitles / closed captions? Where do you?
Let me ask perhaps the question slightly differently. Where do you get your material that you want to use to do listening comprehension? What's your source?
Jose Antonio.
Jose Antonio.
YouTube, and there is a site from UT Austin that it's not subtitled, and that was something I wanted to. The more I hear what you're saying, I find it more interesting. These are not subtitles per se. These are like little bits of text, like tasks that are not more than 2 to 3 minutes. No, that's too long. Probably a minute and a half to 2. And so you can listen to it with the text right next to it or without the text right next to it, but not with subtitles. They're not subtitles necessarily.
I see.
So I've used those sometimes, and they're pretty useful, but I never use them with the text. I always use them without the text. But YouTube is my main source.
Pascal, I remember there was a while you were I can't even remember the word, you were copying films.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's no longer possible because, you know, somebody had I think it was the people in Missas who had a subscription to TV5 Monde, and I would just go copy films, on discs. And now, I mean, people don't use discs anymore. So yes, but they came with subtitles. I mean, most of the things that I would copy, they came with subtitles.
Right, Peter.
Yeah.
Peter?
But I mean, in general, my problem with subtitles is that now we have this absolutely wonderful short formats from the French official, I mean, entities like Arte or INA. So it's the Institute, the National Institute for the Audiovisual Materials, and they have archives for everything. And they've created 5-minute long little entries on topics that are, extremely diverse and great. So it could be on the story of the strike, how it started in France. The story, I mean, how Albert Camus and his views on whatever, and it can be on all sorts of things. And they come with French subtitles and you can't remove them. And there is another, exactly the same kind of format by Brut Media. They also come, I think, in Spanish, actually. I'm not sure. I mean, certainly in English. And they also come with subtitles that you can't remove. And it's sad because they're just the right format. They are pictures. Sometimes they are graphs. I mean, sometimes they're very, very informative so that, the images can help comprehension. And I can't use them for purely listening comprehension because they come with subtitles. And these are really just like wonderful materials. There's also a very good site that exists in many languages that's called Easy and then the language, learning this language from the streets. It started in Germany. So there's a lot, and I mean, really a lot of those things, for German. And they come with subtitles in the language and in English, and actually very high quality subtitles. And you can't remove them either. And these are just great. It's people going on the streets and just asking random strangers the same question, so that you get the benefit of the repetition and slight variations. And it's like great materials, but they come with subtitles. So these are really the best materials that I found, in a long time. Other than that, I mean, you have excerpts from films. You have songs, and many songs, I mean, when you find them on YouTube, a lot of people have added the subtitles. In the case of French, with atrocious spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes, usually. So it's true, when you rely on what people have posted, you often find things with the subtitles, without subtitles, sometimes with translations. And in the case of songs, you often have the lyric videos, and sometimes they're very good and they're very well made. So there's a lot to find on the internet, but often in the case of these particular things that I really, really like, you're stuck with whatever they've been produced with.
Thank you, Pascal. I want to turn to Peter, who had his hand up again briefly.
Yeah, 2 follow-up points. So the first thing is we no longer need to copy films or record it, because most of the streaming services offer subtitles. So what we do is we use Streams, which is a streaming service from Belgium. And then all the video that we used to use in the past from YouTube is now on this website, and we can just click on subtitles on and off. So that's helpful, I think, and even on Netflix. And regarding what Pascal was saying about these websites, it's also a technical matter, so I won't get into that, but you can basically video record a part of your web browser, and that would be a solution to your problem. You would just go to the website, play the video, and then you open this app and you just say, I want only this corner of the screen without the subtitles, and he would record it, the video, and then you would have the material talking about, then you can use in class.
Thank you, Peter.
That was great. Thank you. I will ask Simon to explain how to do it.
Yeah, that brings me to one of the other points I wanted to make. So if there are things that you want to do with subtitles, without subtitles, with procuring various video clips, do let me know. and by either shooting me an email or maybe even now with the chat. I'm in the process of planning a follow-up session to this session where we will look into how do we download certain videos from YouTube, how do we create subtitles for them, how do we maybe scaffold the subtitles in a way that is most appropriate for our pedagogical goals. So if this is something that strikes your interests, let me know. Feel free to use the chat to that end. And I will get back to you at some point next week. Okay.
Let me also add to that. A lot of films, in particular, and TV series, subtitle tracks have been created. You just go to an open source website and you download them, and then you can associate them. So basically, you can say, as your video is playing, add subtitle track, and then you just add it. That's another place where you can get subtitles, so you don't have to look for subtitles, and you can play around because usually you're offered various versions. And again, we come back to the versioning thing, and you can play around with it and see, which one seems to be the one that captures the text the best.
Thank you, Stefan. And that sort of moves us towards the next section of this meeting, where we talked a bit about various streaming services such as YouTube. We have Netflix, Vimeo. Peter mentioned a couple things there too, and they're all fine. There are some disadvantages and advantages that I sort of listed for you, and I will share the slide deck for all of you so that you can take a look at it. What Stefan was talking about, however, is particularly interesting, and that is the option of downloading your own subtitles. So I dug around on the internet a bit and listed 3 sites that I think are pretty good repositories of various subtitles. They're there for you. There are 2 things to keep in mind here. They are only applicable to the material that is already there, right? So it would have to be videos, TV shows, something that's already created. Obviously, something less known or your own stuff, you'll not be able to find subtitles for it. And they're also very easy to edit. Most of them you can open in a notepad or text edit on a Mac and just alter them to your heart's content, or according to your teaching goals and pedagogical principles. And then, if we are looking to deal with our own material, we may not have a choice but to create our own subtitles. And I wanted to ask you if any of you has had any experience with creating your own subtitles from scratch, and if so, if you'd like to share that.
I subtitled one comedy show, and it's, like you said, time consuming. The technical part isn't that easy. You just find the right app and then you just type it in, but it's a lot of work. Basically, it's just typing all the time. And then after the typing, then you have to, okay, this is where I can end. And then you have to code it with the correct timing. So it's a lot of work, basically. Yeah.
It is pretty time consuming.
Simon,
yeah, go ahead.
Can I turn your question on its head?
Sure.
You're talking about us creating subtitles. Has any of you thought about asking your students to create subtitles as an exercise?
Anki, would that work in your class?
Well, it's a listening comprehension. What are they hearing? Can they create a subtitle? Go ahead, Carol. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think Felice in the Italian department.
Yes, there you go. That's what I was leaning towards.
Do that. He had them, actually, I think he just had them watch a movie and make up up a story to match what they were seeing and then subtitle it.
I took his class, and so I went through that. He he asked us to dub it. To dub the scene, and that was much harder. And we were supposed to dub it using it would give us a clip, and then we were supposed to use our imagination, change what they were saying, and create a story. So that was much harder.
Sounds like
It was fun. It was fun, but it was really hard.
Yeah. But, you know, that's the idea here, is that instead of you being the producer and the student the consumer, is to turn the equation around and get the students to be the producer of something. Go ahead.
Here, I'm just wondering whether we cannot just achieve the exact same result with just a plain dictation.
Absolutely.
You know, because when you think, yeah, it would be a good idea to do this, but then why use this thing that's pretty complicated? Because we go through, you know, we say, okay, you're going to write the subtitles, but actually you're just asking them to do a dictation. So I'm not sure that it's worth the trouble.
Okay.
Yeah, I have the ideas here when you talk about the dictation. I think maybe for other language, maybe it's not useful, but for Vietnamese language, it's very useful, especially for the elementary level, because we have the vowel marks and the tones and the combination sounds. So when they listen and when they have the subtitle, it's a good idea for them to remember how to spell the word. Yeah, I think.
So a bit of a drill almost.
Yeah, yeah, it is drill. Yeah.
Carol, I think you had your hand up. I would like to
Kaiser
add to
did.
this.
Yeah, go ahead, Carol. Sorry.
Oh, I didn't have my hand up.
Oh, okay. Chris?
No, I didn't have my hand up either.
Okay. Okay, I wanted to I wanted to ask Angi then, since she joined us a little bit later and hasn't said much yet. Do you think that this kind of subtitles activity would work in the context of Indonesian instruction?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it will work in my classes, and I actually like really want to do the I really want to try the dubbing one. I think it's going to be very fun for them. We have like some clips from some movies, and then I was thinking that maybe like first I can, you know, show them the video first without any sound or without any subtitles, so they can like brainstorm what the video is actually about, what is the context, what is the what is the expressions that could be used in that video. So I want them like to brainstorm first and then discuss, and then maybe like predict what kind of expressions, what kind of words will be there. And then after that, we can like see, we can watch the video without the subtitle first, and then so they got to hear what they're actually talking about, and they can see like about their prediction, whether it is like a good prediction or not. And then we will use the other video for them to make like a dubbing for them to produce. So I'm really interested in like what Stefan say, that the students can be the producers, and I believe that they can be like more engaged when they do that. Yeah.
Just wanted to tell you, for having tried it, and we were using, what were you using? I don't remember exactly what we were using, I mean, to create the dubbing, but it was kind of technical, and you had to be sure that what you said took exactly the same amount of time so that you wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't become misaligned. I mean, that's not the right word, unsynchronized. So that might be a bit too much to ask your students, but you can play with like doing a kind of karaoke thing. So basically you're watching the pictures and the students are doing the dialogue. That may be sort of easier, and you'd kind of do it in class, because recording the thing and making sure it matches, I mean, there's a lot of technical know-how.
Exactly.
It would be like a waste of time on the part of the students, although it's fun, but
I did want to put a shout out to Woody Allen here. You know, I don't know.
What's New Pussycat?
What's Up, Tiger Lily?
Oh, What's Up, Tiger Lily? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Which is a wonderful film by Woody Allen, where he takes a Japanese film and he dubs it in English, where the dialogue has absolutely nothing to do with what's going on the screen.
I think it's a Yakuza kind of movie, and it's the dialogue has nothing to do with it. It's really quite fun. Yeah.
And I think that also to build up on what Stefan was saying and to try to fit it within language pedagogy, that would be a good example of a fully productive activity, right? Which may be at the end of a sentence or at the end of the sequence. So if we start with an activity that is receptive, where our students, just are listening, and then reproductive, where they have to recreate the actual dialogue, then we can introduce them to an idea where, okay, well, now there is no words, why don't you write your own story? So that may be something that, could be fun and could be tested out in your own classes if you're interested. And if that is something that you would like to try out, then for a follow-up session, I would like to introduce you to a platform called Jobler, which is free, open source for both Mac and Windows. And this is a workshop that I like to offer as a follow-up to the current session, where we can actually get into the details of how to prepare your own subtitles, how to choose your video, how to download it, and things like that. So this is something that is you would like to do. Just again, let me know, and I will happily organize it. And to sort of give you maybe a bit of a preview of some of the things that you can do, I prepared a very short clip that took me a couple minutes to cobble together in Jobler. So let me minimize this. And this is an IKEA commercial, which I subtitled. So this is already a scaffolded activity that I call reverse fill in the blank.
I must confess, this place ain't blessed. This place is a mess. No, you don't deserve no guest. In here, I don't want to lay down or rest. Are you crazy?
And so on and so forth. So here we are, focusing strictly on form recognition, and specifically on the lexical items that end in ES, that could be either voiced or devoiced here. But of course, this is something that you can adjust for your own needs purposes. And again, if you're interested in how to put things like that together, I'm more than happy to show that. And let me, on that note, since we are really almost out of time, there's one more thing that I wanted to offer, and that is just some additional tools that I ran into as I was preparing for today's session. There are various tools that incorporate subtitles to sort of various degree of scaffolding. The first one is a Google Chrome add-on that generates subtitles for Netflix, for YouTube, and allows you to manipulate them in certain ways. For lyrics training, it generates randomly or random fill in the gap activities based on music videos. And Lyrica, which is the last item, sort of does the same thing, but in a more scaffolded way.
While Simon is sharing this, I know it's 5 o'clock and we're coming to the end, but I did want to just throw out, I picked up a couple of things Pascal was talking about. I'd be interested in what the rest of you thought about it. At some point, you were talking about song lyrics on the internet. You were saying, oh, they have atrocious grammatical mistakes and they make, they don't do it well. Is that a fault? Can't we not use this to our own benefit? So I'd be interested in what the rest of you thought, what can we do with something that's atrocious?
But we can certainly boost the students' confidence by saying to them, you see, this is what native speakers are writing. You can do a lot better.
We were talking a lot about confidence boosting last week, last Friday, actually.
Yeah.
But it's more than confidence boosting. We can ask them to correct, depending upon what they hear,
Yep.
I mean, there's things we can do with things that are bad from the beginning, it seems to me. And then the other thing I heard you say is at some point you said, I can't use it for pure listening comprehension. I'm not quite sure what pure listening comprehension is, as opposed to what? Unpure listening comprehension?
I think I sense from Pascal's, maybe I'm just projecting because I feel so strongly that there's just so little time to spend on bad language. We have so little time in our class that I don't want them to hear mistakes. I want them to be always listening to good, clean, well-spoken language and work on that. I don't have time for the rest. No, that's how I feel.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. If we had all the time in the world, I mean, we could do like really fun things like asking the students to dub their, the videos and write the subtitles. It's just very time consuming, and we have millions of other things to do. And same thing, why show them really bad example? We can do it once in a while. I mean, just to prove, yes, I mean, the agreement of the past participle is definitely not going to outlast the planet. Which is what I said, to my students the other day, kind of depressing, just because nobody in France knows the rule anymore. And here are proofs. Okay, so we can definitely do that by showing them these atrociously bad, badly made subtitles with tons of mistakes. And as to pure listening comprehension, I'm saying that, if you show the students the text, then it's no longer just listening comprehension, it's listening and reading at the same time. That's all I meant.
Peter, would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, I did my teacher training program at UChicago, and there I heard the similar comments, which are all valid, by the way, about not having enough time. But there I learned that basically our time is limited, which is true. So we should only focus on things that are important in our classroom. And so the approach that I learned there was flipping the classroom. And I think if more of us were flipping the classroom, actually there would be more time for this type of activities. But that's just an idea of mine.
Thank you, Peter. Very useful. And since we were talking about timing, it is 3 minutes after 4. So I think this would be a good time to thank you for your attendance.